So my name's Liz Lilly, and I'm a member of the Leadership Contest Committee. A lot of you will know me as a policy wonk who spends most of her time in the weeds of policy. But welcome, and thank you for being here. And I'd also like to welcome those who are watching on YouTube or at a watch party. There's various watch parties in Vancouver and places like that. These lands we settlers now call British Columbia and Canada are the ancestral and unceded territories of Indigenous nations and communities. Today, this debate is taking place on the territory of the Lekwungen-speaking peoples, who are today known as the Esquimalt and Songhees nations. Let's recognize our responsibility to this land. Our presence here is tied to a commitment to listen to Indigenous communities, uplift their self-determination, and advocate for their needs in law and action. We are guided by the urgency of reconciliation, not just in words, but in protecting these lands, waters, and futures. Today and in all we do, we strive to be accountable to these nations and their stewardship of the land long before us and long after us. So now to the business of the day. The debate will last approximately 2 hours, and as I said, there'll be a 5-minute break midway. This will be followed by an explanation of the voting procedures, and again, as I said earlier, anyone who still needs to be verified can visit the staff table and be verified. If you are at a debate watch party, there are staff available to do verifications at those watch parties. I'd now like to hand over to Rob Buttrell, one of our very hard-working BC Green caucus and MLA for Saanich North and the Islands. Rob, you and Jeremy are amazing. You do an incredible job, and I want to thank you very much indeed for all you do. And I know Jeremy is watching, and I know that he is very eager to see the performance of the contestants, one of whom will be the next leader of the BC Greens. Rob.
Thanks very much. That's fabulous. I'm so excited to be here today, and I want to report that the BC ferries were on time from Pender Island. So the Greens are having a huge impact all over the province. Look, this is an amazing opportunity to hear from the leaders. And of course, I always get asked, well, Rob, are you going to endorse somebody? Well, who are you going to endorse? And I say, of course, I'm not going to endorse any of these three amazing candidates, because it's up to the members and supporters of this party to make that decision. And then what happens, as soon as I say that, I say, well, come on, can you just lean me somehow or give me a little hint? And I say, no, you know, actually, these are all amazing candidates. They all have an incredible background, energy, passion, and they've all achieved amazing things. And so then my answer is, I'd like to have all three working with Jeremy and I, because we're gonna, together, we're gonna take this Green Party to a whole new level, and watch out, NDP and Conservatives, and oh my God, one BC now. But it's now my pleasure, and the reason I'm actually here is to introduce Joanne Roberts, who will be our moderator for today's debate. Joanne is an award-winning journalist, passionate about democracy, passionate about so many things. I've listened to Joanne on CBC Radio for 20 years, and I have like a 4-hour description of her accomplishments. But I'm going to save you from that, because you're here to hear from the leadership contestants. But the one thing that I love about Joanne is she's written this fabulous book, Storm the Ballot Box. And as a member of the Special Committee on Democratic and Electoral Reform, it's so helpful to have thoughtful books like Joanne's to help guide us as we move the province to a new electoral system. Anyway, Joanne has traveled all the way from Halifax to be with us today, and we really appreciate that. So give Joanne a warm welcome. Thank you.
Rob, if you weren't an MLA, I'd make you my publicist. Thanks for that. Hi, everybody. It is wonderful to be back in British Columbia and to be here in Victoria with so many Greens. I see lots of familiar faces in the crowd, and I know there are a number of you listening on YouTube it's great to be with you. This is an important time in the history of BC Greens. When a time comes about when you are going to be choosing a new leader, it is one of those times when you want to give thoughts to where's the party going? What's the party need in the future? You're going to have a chance to hear the contestants at this event talk about that. I want to tell you a little bit about this debate because it's not going to be exactly like other debates you've been at. This is designed, and I've been working with the LCC on the design of this debate, the statements, the format, and it's designed to give you a chance to assess the leadership qualities of each of the contestants. So we will talk a little bit about policy, but it's not just about policy. It is about what do these three people bring to the table in terms of their leadership. The purpose of the debate is to enable the contestants to demonstrate their leadership styles, their policy priorities, and their approach to building the party. Contestants will be expected to answer all the questions and use the questions to demonstrate to each of us their ability to do those things. They'll get an opening statement, each of them, 90 seconds long, and they'll get 90 seconds for their closing statement, and we actually did a draw to decide the order. During the debate, there are going to be 3 different types of questions. In the spirit of debate, the questions will be in the format of a statement. So I'm not going to say, be it resolved, but they will be statements rather than a direct question. One contestant will be asked to address the statement, and the other 2 will have the opportunity to respond to that. The statement has been designed to stimulate discussion, and you're going to hear me say this all afternoon. It is not necessarily the position of the BC Green Party. We have chosen these statements to get the discussion going. Quickfire round, that'll be the second type. The quickfire round will be, each contestant will have 60 seconds to respond to the same question, and these will be based on policy. And again, not necessarily the official policy of the Green Party, but we've chosen topics that we need to know where do these contestants stand on these policies. And then there's contestant to contestant questions. And it's the most complicated for me because I have to figure out the order, but it will be the most fun for you, I guarantee it. Each contestant will have the opportunity to ask a specific question to the other contestants, and they'll each get a chance to ask each of the other contestants another question. And the person they ask, they have 30 seconds to ask that question, and we're going to be really strict with time this afternoon. And the person they ask will have 60 seconds to respond. As well, I mean, I've spoken to all 3 contestants before I came up here, and they know we want this to be a fair and factual event this afternoon. So I do have the authority to disallow a question if for some reason I deem it's inappropriate. They all know that. Now I want to say that we did 4 draws. We drew for opening and closing statements. There's going to be a scrum with the media after this. We drew names for that, for order. And finally, we drew an order of where people will stand on the stage. Before I move to that, I should tell them there is a TV screen here that you can't see, but it has the time on it. And all the contestants have been told that will control their 90 seconds or their 60 seconds. So if you see them looking down there, that's what they're looking at. All right, let me give you the order of where they will stand on this stage, which matches the podiums, and invite our 3 contestants to be the next leader of the BC Green Party. Please invite them to the stage. Emily Lowen, Jonathan Kerr, and Adam Bremner-Aikens. Good-looking bunch. That's what we say back in the Maritimes. All right. We're going to get right to it and begin with your opening statements. And as I said, we did a draw. And Jonathan Kerr, you will go first with 90 seconds.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. There's never been a more important time for the BC Greens. Despite the obvious signs of climate change, the other parties are doubling down on fossil fuel expansion. Greens are different. We have a long-term view of how to build a better province. Greens are the party of sustainability and intergenerational equity. Greens are the party of data and science and putting evidence above politics. I will always stand up against old-growth logging, pipelines, and fracking. But the next leader of our party also has to show British Columbians that we have a hopeful, optimistic future of how to appeal to all British Columbians and make their lives better. Now, this is a big challenge to be able to do both, and I'm ready for it. I know what it takes to run as a Green and win. I ran as a Green in Comox and was elected and re-elected with the highest number of votes. I recruited other great candidates and helped them get elected too. And then we worked together for our constituents to deliver results like more family doctors and affordable housing. Like our current MLAs, I've shown that when you elect a Green, we get things done. I'm ready to do the work, build our strength across the province so we can win more seats and implement more Green policies.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. And second, with an opening statement, I now invite Adam Bremner-Aikens to give their opening statement. Adam.
Thank you. Yeah, my name's Adam Bremner-Aikens, and I'm running to be the next leader of our party. I've spent the last 8 years working within my community and within the BC Green Party. I got involved with the BC Greens after I started climate organizing outside my high school, where I took inspiration and was the first person to sit outside like Greta Thunberg did. From there, I got more involved in my riding association, and then as a BC Green Party MLA candidate in 2020. It was then I was pulled into the Young BC Greens, where I became frustrated that the BC Green Party didn't have a youth representative on our provincial council. I took action. I wrote the terms of reference, I got bylaws passed, and I put a youth representative, and then the Young Greens honored me to sit and serve in that position for 3 years. I was then unanimously chosen by my colleagues on the provincial council to serve as secretary. And just this October, last year, I once again stood up and ran for the BC Greens as an MLA candidate in Port Coquitlam. This time, I was the lead surrogate for the BC Greens in the Metro Vancouver area. I was the BC Green candidate in charge of holding multiple members of David Eby's cabinet accountable. I championed progressive policies and continued to push for real efforts on climate policies and the cost of living crisis. Outside the BC Greens, I've organized climate strikes, advocated for greener cities, volunteered in schools, and I was even fired for union organizing. As a political science student at Simon Fraser University, I'm on the front lines of these crises. And I'm running for leader to ensure that I have a better future, my kids have a better future, and all of us have a better future together. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. And now we turn to Emily Lowen. Emily, your opening remarks.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Emily Lowen. My journey started a decade ago as a volunteer with the BC Greens, and it set me on my course to become a climate organizer and policy researcher. Since then, I've led federal policy coalitions that have represented over 1.5 million Canadians as a strategist at Climate Action Network Canada. I've published critical research that exposes just how insidiously entrenched fossil fuels are with our governments and our institutions. I've built, with First Nations, the resistance movement against the PRGT pipeline. In all my work, I build across difference. I communicate real vision, and I know what it takes to inspire the hard work of collective action. And that is the approach that will build a stronger BC Green Party. My campaign set an ambitious goal of doubling the party base, and we now have 4,500 new members and over 1,500 new youth members under 30. We've been endorsed by leaders like Dr. David Suzuki, Zipporah Berman, Dr. Gabor Mate, and Grand Chief Stuart Phillip. As I've traveled all over the province this summer, it's clear that our members are ready for a resurgence. I am the party builder we need to bring the BC Greens into a thriving new era.
Thank you, Emily. All right, we're off to a good start. We are now going to move on to our first round of debate statements. Now, in this round, as I said, each contestant is going to be asked, given one statement in turn. They will respond to it, and then the other two will have an opportunity to reply. As I say, the question is in the form of a statement. I feel like I'm on Jeopardy or something, that is designed to stimulate discussion and is not necessarily the position of the BC Green Party, and we are going to begin with you, Adam. As part of this debate, we want to understand why you want to lead the BC Greens. Please respond to this statement. The party's 6 principles have been the most important factor in my decision to join the BC Green Party, and you have 2.5 minutes.
Thank you. I think for me, it really starts back when I was organizing for climate change action. And the Greens were the only party at the time, and we still are the only party who's taking climate change and protection of the environment seriously. As well, the BC Greens is the only party pushing for real resolutions on the cost of living crisis, housing affordability crisis, the healthcare crisis, and what feels like almost every other policy issue in the province becoming a crisis. And as I went through school at Simon Fraser University, I'm a political science student, I saw more and more that the BC Green Party had real policies that are helping everyday people. And as someone who's from Metro Vancouver and cannot afford to live in the community that I grew up in, the BC Green Party is the only one that gives me the hope to push forward. I'm fighting for a future that is better for all of us, myself included, because at this moment in time, it's no longer possible to thrive in British Columbia. And the BC Greens are the only answer to that.
Thank you very much for your response to that. And Jonathan, you're next, and you will have 2.5 minutes to respond to the statement that I read, which is the party's 6 principles have been the most important factor in my decision to join the BC Green Party.
Well, the 6 principles are why I joined the Greens a long time ago, and I just really feel passionate about all 6 of them. When I was on the federal EDA and our provincial riding association, we started every meeting going around the room and talking about which of the 6 principles affected you since our last meeting. And we had a little story and really set the tone. It was a really beautiful way to start each meeting. Social justice is one that really speaks to me, and it's one that I've been passionate about my entire life. Equity and fairness have always been things that I've really felt, even as a young kid. And maybe I'll tell you a story. When I was about 11 or 10, my dad took me to the toboggan hill one cold winter evening. And we got out of the truck and stood at the bottom of the hill, and I looked up, and I saw chaos. There were kids sliding down every which way, walking up. Big kids were hitting little kids. There were fights breaking out. It was absolute mayhem. And I stood there, dropped my toboggan, and walked up the hill. I talked to the bigger kids who were getting frustrated at the little kids that they kept walking up, and I said, let's do something about this. If you want to go faster, and I know you do, let's help get the little kids to walk up the sides. I talked to the little kids and their parents, and I said, if you want your kid not to get hit, help me, let's walk up the side. And it didn't change overnight. It took about a half an hour. And after about a half an hour, I walked back down the hill, I looked up, and it was beautiful. Kids were sliding down the hill, the big kids were going fast, going over the jumps, the little kids weren't getting hit anymore, parents were happy. And my dad turned to me and he said, "You having fun, son?" So I grabbed my toboggan, went up the hill, took one run, and then we left and we went for hot chocolate. I've always loved seeing patterns. I love thinking about systems. I love thinking about our society and social justice. Being able to look at and see patterns as a doctor or just as a community member and working to fix those is something I've been doing ever since I can remember. So that's something I'm really passionate about doing, working on all the other 6 principles as well, and really making sure that our Green Party, BC Greens, are always focused on social justice.
Thank you very much. Emily, I'm going to repeat it, just everyone gets to hear it. How would you respond to this statement that the party's 6 principles have been the most important factor in your decision to join the BC Green Party?
I absolutely agree. 10 years ago when I joined the BC Green Party, it was an open door. It was a beacon in a time when I was learning about the climate crisis for the first time, and you were the only party standing up with scientific, evidence-based policy and telling the truth about such a mammoth issue affecting my future. I grew up in Victoria, running on the forest trails and swimming in the ocean. And so as I think about the 6 principles, they have been really my roadmap for the last decade of my career. But I think about ecological wisdom as a particularly profound principle. I think about the Indigenous knowledge and wisdom that has brought me to this point. The many relationships that I hold across this province, the elders and chiefs that I've learned from over the course of the last several years, working to stop the disastrous projects happening across this province, and to learn what it really means to steward and be in relationship with these lands. And I also think about the ecological wisdom of the BC Greens as a community. The intergenerational knowledge here is profound and deep. We have deep roots in the environmental movement, in the movements for social justice and a fairer future. And I think that's been a real takeaway of this campaign is I spent the first half of this campaign bringing in a wave of young people. And the second half of the campaign, I spent knitting them together with the older generations of this party. And I think there is a profound force when you can meet experience with energy, where we can learn from each other and push forward for a truly bold, progressive future. And I think ecological wisdom also includes an understanding of the root causes. As a researcher at the Corporate Mapping Project, I was shining a light on billionaire wealth hoarding and the scale of pollution on our lands and waters. And so to see that holistically together as an intergenerational force is a guiding principle for my own work.
Thank you very much. And thank you for all 3 of you staying under our 2 minutes and 30 seconds. All right, we're going to move on to our second statement in this round, and we're going to begin with you, Jonathan. Now, again, I'm going to point out these are not necessarily the position of the BC Greens. Jonathan, please respond to this statement. As leader, establishing a solid financial base for the party is important for the future success of the party.
Well, it sounds like you were watching our Comox Council meeting this past week as we had our pre-budget review. Yeah, I mean, as an elected official, I mean, stewarding the public finances is really important to me. You know, we have had lots of discussions around the Comox Council, and as I'm the vice chair of our regional district, how do you ensure that you spend the millions of dollars that we bring in revenue every year wisely? You know, raising taxes is very challenging in this setting when cost of living is so difficult for so many British Columbians. What I've committed to is going into the next election, if I'm leader, we will have a fully costed platform to ensure that British Columbians have trust and faith in our party, to ensure that what we're saying we can do, we can afford. The province right now has billions of dollars of deficit, and it's really a shame. You know, when you look at subsidies to oil and gas industry, when you look at corporate windfalls that are, you know, sucking the money out of our province, we need to have a wealth redistribution in our province. We need to tax wealthy corporations and wealthy individuals at a much higher rate and ensure that we have the services, the healthcare, the schools, the education system for all of our citizens. So absolutely, a well-costed platform, fully costed platform going into the next election is something I'm fully committed to.
Thanks very much, Jonathan. And next we have Emily. You'll have 2.5 minutes to respond to this statement. As leader, establishing a solid financial base for the party is important for the future success of the party.
Yeah, I'll speak specifically to my expertise as a fundraiser and as a movement builder. I think there's so many transferable skills here, and it's very clear with the success of my campaign. We've raised over $70,000 in the short weeks of this campaign, largely through grassroots donations. And I think that's really the possibility and the potential of having a movement builder and an organizer lead the helm of the BC Green Party, who can inspire thousands of new people to come into this party, to donate what they can. But I'm a fan of taxing the rich. It sounds like you've read my platform, Jonathan. And I think it's so crucial that we build up networks of income-secure people with generational wealth across age groups. I'm really inspired by the model of resource network, which is both here in Canada and across the United States, that brings together individuals with generational wealth to actually reallocate those funds for progressive causes. So I think building the BC Greens relationship to networks like those, deepening our ties to larger donors, to organizations and communities, but ultimately, we need to bring back the wind in our sails, to have a thriving movement that is donating, chipping in what they can year-round. So I'm thrilled to be bringing this fundraising experience to the BC Greens and to steward forward a strong financial future for the party.
Thank you very much. And Adam Bremner-Aikens, I'll repeat it one more time, as leader, establishing a solid financial base for the party is important for its future success.
Thank you. Yeah, I will say that this is something I've worked on a lot in my experience on provincial council, and I'm proud to have been part of the provincial council that saw back-to-back record fundraising years for our party. We have worked with our fundraising team to continue to improve our results, and there are lots of things I would like to look into to ensure that we're getting as much opportunity as we can. For instance, the percent on donations when people donate, you may have seen. There's a little box that says tick your processing fee. I'd love to look into seeing if we can reduce that. I've done the math on it, and I know we can save at least $20,000 to $30,000 a year by halving that fee. As well as I'd like to make sure that our organization continues to be fiscally responsible, looking at our budgets, ensuring that we're targeting ridings with the right amount of money to ensure that we have the best electoral results, and really ensuring that donors feel that they're connected to the party. And that is putting out more opportunities for donors to get involved with our party and really integrating them in a way we haven't seen within the party, so that both we can build connections with people, and ideally that will bring in more donations to the party and ensure we have a strong fiscal base, but as well as pushing and making sure people have connections and they understand that when you donate to the BC Green Party, every single person in that party, from the staff to the leader to our MLAs, thank you. We appreciate it, and building those connections out is going to be part of my policy, but also looking at the internal finances and finding opportunities for savings so we can put that money to work electing Green MLAs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you to all three. One thing I mentioned to you all before the debate is that we do have a few people who are here just double-checking numbers that come up so that we can correct them. And I do have the new membership numbers here, and I just want to add them so that we're all working from the same one. The new members that were brought in by all of the campaigns combined to date in the leadership contest is 3,700. So just want to correct that figure, that it's 3,700. All right, let's move on to the last question in this round. And we're going to start with you, Emily. So here we go. Emily, please respond to this statement. My priority as leader will be to get elected and select contestants for the next election that are compatible with my style. You have 2.5 minutes.
Compatible with my style. There's so many ways to interpret that. Yeah, I know that the BC Greens have a bright slate of candidates for the next election, and I'm going to steward that forward by going on a tour of the province. This is a part of my 100-day plan that I just released. I'll tour the province and I'll rebuild the connections with previous candidates from the last several generations, or last cycles of the election. And to ensure that we have that continuity, that we're rebuilding our social capital across candidates, because I know so many people sometimes get burnt out and feel left behind and are run ragged by the election process. And so I would ensure that I would both rebuild connections with pre-existing candidates, but also recruit new ones across the province. I have a vast network across climate, social justice, and labor communities across BC. And I've been so excited to see the slate of endorsers that have endorsed my campaign. So many local leaders and people with international expertise and profile, some of whom I may push to run. But I've also been heartened by my tours in more rural parts of the province, going to northern BC and talking to real community leaders in those regions. When I was up there for the Peace and Unity Summit, I was pulled aside by a community leader, and he said, if you win, I'm in. I will run in this region. And that's the kind of deep, embedded community leader that we need to run in places like northern BC, who could actually flip those ridings from, I'm thinking of Nathan Cullen's old riding, from blue to orange to green. And so I know that as an organizer, as someone who will dedicate over 70 hours of my life a week at least when elected, that I will recruit candidates and I will bring in the wraparound supports, the data systems, and the hundreds of volunteers that they'll need to win.
Thank you very much. I am going to ask you, do you also seek election yourself, just because we didn't get the first half?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Next is Adam. Adam, I'm going to repeat the question. You have 2.5 minutes to answer the question. My priority as leader will be to get elected and select contestants for the next election that are compatible with my style.
Yeah, thank you. And I think it is a priority for whichever one of us ends up as the next leader.
Yes.
And whether that be in a by-election or in the general election, I look forward to taking that opportunity and putting the green name on the ballot again. In terms of finding candidates, I've been a candidate twice myself, and I actually am the only person on the stage who's been a candidate before for the BC Greens. So I already know 2 past groups of people. I see faces in this room who've run for us, and I know many people online and who have supported my campaign are willing to run again. So I think for me, reaching out to past friends and future friends isn't going to be particularly a difficult exercise. The one that I really want to focus on as I prepare to go to election is touring and visiting locations that are important to us. Locations like Nelson, locations like Victoria, locations like Kamloops, like parts of Metro Vancouver, areas where we have green support, where the leader needs to show up and make sure that the Greens and the people of those communities know we are there to fight for you. And that will be my priority once I get the candidates. But in terms of finding candidates, I've got lots of Green friends from past and present that I would love to bring forward, including lots of municipal councillors and people who have real credible reputations in their community. Because if there's one thing Greens have shown is that our constituency work is second to none.
Thank you very much, Adam. And we're going to wrap this question up with you, Jonathan. I'm going to read it one last time. My priority as leader will be to get elected and select contestants for the next election that are compatible with my style.
Thank you. Yes, I plan to run and I plan to win like I have the last 2 times I ran. Really your question is about team building. And, as a youth sports coach in biathlon and cross-country skiing and having been an athlete all my life, I know a fair bit about team building. And really it's not about styles, it's about values. I can work with any style. I can work with people and athletes that I coach, various styles, but as long as we share values, that's what matters. And Greens, we're connected by those 6 green values. In a poll released just yesterday, support for the NDP in our province is down, and support for the BC Greens, guess what, is up. We have to be ready to capitalize on this and the upswing and momentum in the next election. As the next BC Green leader, between now and the next election, I will scour the province and dedicate myself to recruiting strong candidates, an all-star lineup, working with local riding associations and empowering local campaigns in the next election. It all starts with these amazing candidates, and our party's greatest success is when we ran a whole professional lineup of candidates, city councillors, professors, doctors, business owners, and community leaders. We need to start right away recruiting these next all-star lineup of candidates and training amazing campaign managers to help them win. The vision that I've been sharing while I've been traveling this province this summer really has been resonating with people. A vision of British Columbians growing our economy, ensuring that we have health care for all of our citizens, and making sure that we make daily life more affordable. That's how we speak to British Columbians and get candidates on board to represent that message. In terms of endorsements, I'm really proud of the endorsements I've received. Former party leaders, including Adrian Carr and Jane Stirk. Other candidates, Azina Hamir from Courtney Comox, Christina Winter in Victoria, and Randy Sunderman in Kamloops. Longtime patients of mine, green volunteers I've knocked on hundreds of doors with, university students, youth athletes I've coached, and Tennille Johnson from the Wayway First Nation and a counselor in Campbell River. These aren't all famous names, but these are people that actually know me as a person, coach, volunteer, doctor, and counselor. I invite you to visit my website, jonathankerr4bc.com, and read the whole endorsement section to find out who I am as a person. Thanks.
Thank you all very much. Well done. Now we're going to move on to our quick fire round. That's what we're calling it anyway. Each of you will have 60 seconds, so clock's going to change, to respond to these policy-related statements. Again, please note, this is for everyone watching, these statements are intended to stimulate discussion. They do not necessarily reflect the position of the BC Green Party, which it says to all three of you candidates you can agree or disagree with them. But we want to hear what your response is. For the first one, the order will be Emily, Jonathan, Adam, and we're going to move quickly through that. So here's the first statement. Restoring a price on carbon should be the #1 priority of the BC Green Party in the next election. We want your response. 60 seconds, Emily.
I disagree. So, unfortunately, Conservatives have polluted the well on the carbon tax, and I think it should exist, but we should find a way to bring it in so it doesn't become so politically polarized. We know that when parties like the NDP move to the center, and right-wing groups swoop in, scapegoating climate, affordability, and vulnerable groups, we need to ensure that we are prioritizing policy that makes polluters pay, that ensures that big polluters are paying their fair share through frameworks like a strengthened OBPS system. And I know that the BC Greens can appeal to working people, and we can find a way to flip the narrative on climate affordability by cutting out fossil fuel subsidies and having a stronger approach.
Thanks, Emily. You did it in a minute. And next is Jonathan. Restoring a price on carbon should be the #1 priority of the BC Green Party in the next election.
I agree with Emily and disagree. You know, as a family doctor, I'm a listener. And as a politician, I'm a listener. And so what I would like to do is listen to the people of British Columbia. What are their priorities? And that's what I want to go to work on. The top 3 issues in the latest poll are cost of living, housing, and healthcare. Now, as a Green, I have to add the environment to that. And as someone who believes strongly in participatory democracy, I have to add proportional representation. So those would be my top 5: cost of living, housing, healthcare, pro-rep, and environmental issues. Those issues are going to be so important in our next election, all of them. And we need to have a leader with experience on those issues that can speak and have a track record on those issues and make sure that voters look at us and say, yes, that's the party that's going to bring more family doctors. That's the party that's going to make my life more affordable. Thanks.
Thank you, Jonathan. Adam, do you need me to read it again? Restoring a price on carbon should be the #1 priority of the BC Green Party in the next election. 60 seconds.
Thank you, and I'm going to disagree as well. As leader, my priority and the priority of the BC Green Party will be to get more seats in the legislature. In terms of carbon pricing, we know carbon pricing is the most effective tool we have in our toolboxes to address the climate crisis. And finding ways to ensure that big polluters are being held accountable while we're not pressing our foot onto the people who are struggling to survive in the province because of the cost of living crisis is going to be an important balance. And I think when we look at that, we have to first put forward solutions that center people and individuals and ensuring that they are protected first, and then look at how we can hold big polluters accountable so that we don't get a situation where we have so much tension in our society over a simple tax.
All right. Thank you to all 3 of you. Okay, here's the next one. Again, this may not necessarily reflect the position of the BC Green Party. Eliminating the debt should be the priority of government fiscal policy. And Jonathan, you get to go first on this one.
All right, more topics from our Comox Council meeting.
Yeah.
So one of the things I've been really proud about at our fiscal policy here in the town of Comox is that we have very little debt. And I'm very risk averse and debt averse. And so I think we should limit the amount of debt we have as a province and pay that down. However, you can't do that overnight. And it's really important that we don't cut services. We should be expanding services. So how can we do that? Expand services, yet reduce our debt? Well, it's called growing the economy. For every dollar we spend on the oil and gas sector and create a job, if you put that same amount of money in clean technology and clean energy, it creates 3.4 jobs. We could grow our economy, grow our provincial coffers by transitioning away from oil and gas extraction and to clean energy, clean tech. That's how we have our cake and eat it too. We increase revenue for the province and we ensure that we get out of debt.
Thank you. All right, Adam, you're next on this one. Eliminating the debt should be the priority of government fiscal policy. 60 seconds.
Thank you. Yeah, I believe that the priority for the government fiscal policy first should be ensuring that everyone in the province is taken care of and that their needs are met. And whether that means ensuring that we have proper healthcare or that we have transit to get us to where we need to go, that should be first and foremost. But when we look at our economy and the subsidies we give out to fossil fuel companies, why are we giving billions of dollars away a year when we could be paying down our debt? The debt crisis is going to be something that myself and my generation has to pay off for the rest of our lives. And we know that the BC NDP is on a track to expand our debt to numbers we haven't seen in a very long time. And to do that, I think we need to take an important look at how we're going to grow the economy. And that is through investment into green technologies, into green businesses, and into communities, so that everyone in the province can thrive while we ensure that we're providing social services we need and that our debt is not inflating and we're not leaving the next generation with a big bill.
Thank you. Emily, eliminating the debt should be the priority of government fiscal policy.
So I actually want to zoom out.
Okay.
Because I think this starts with taxing corporate greed. There are tens of billions in untaxed wealth in this province. And when we look at the wealth gap between regular BC families and billionaire families, the top BC billionaires are making 5,845 times more than the regular BC household. And so we need to acknowledge that extreme wealth isn't created out of nowhere. It has to be extracted or stolen from workers and communities. And we know that the BC Greens can be a force to intervene. And we can do that with things like a windfall tax, with a higher corporate tax by 1.5% over 3 years. And we can also increase the amount of land value tax imposed on homes over $3 million or more. So
that's time.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Okay, lots of good ideas coming out. Okay, this next one, you're going to love it. And Adam, you're first. And then we go to Emily and Jonathan. A BC Green government would have difficulty working with a Mark Carney federal government whose plan is to fast-track fossil fuel projects. A BC Green government would have difficulty working with a Mark Carney federal government whose plan is to fast-track fossil fuel projects. Adam, 60 seconds.
Yes, that will be the case under my leadership. If there is, when we get a BC Green government, it will be difficult for them to get through any fossil fuel pipelines. I think one of the most important things to start is having relationships with members of Mr. Carney's government and members of our government. And as someone who has friends across the political spectrum, I can tell you that I'm going to go to them and I'm going to talk to them and find out how we can work together on this. Because the people of British Columbia do not want more fossil fuel infrastructure running through our natural beauty. But we need to ensure that the federal government understands and respects our right to choose what happens within our province's borders. And to that, I will stand up for the province and I'll stand up for green values and work to do everything in my power to prevent new fossil fuel infrastructure while demanding that the federal government invests in green infrastructure in BC.
Thank you, Adam. And so, Emily, a BC Green government would have difficulty working with a Mark Carney federal government whose plan is to fast-track fossil fuel projects. 60 seconds.
I struggle to see the difference between Carney's Liberals and the BC NDP, frankly. They're working hand in hand. They're using the threat of Trump as a Trojan horse to recolonize this province and bring in a whole new wave of fossil fuel projects, often without the consent of Indigenous nations. So, as a BC Green leader, I would push to impose an immediate moratorium on all fossil fuel expansion, and that would also include ending all fossil fuel subsidies. So coming projects like the MAGA-backed PRGT project and the Sealisms terminal would not have the financial support that they would need to continue. I would also ensure that we're not breaking our BC hydro grid to electrify LNG. This is another greenwashed myth that both the Liberals and the NDP are pushing.
Thank you. Jonathan, working with the Mark Carney government, how hard would that be for a BC Green government, given Carney wants to fast-track fossil fuel projects?
Well, Joanna, I don't get mad often, but when I saw that list of 5 come out, I was furious. I think I paced around the house for a while, and I couldn't believe Phase 2 LNG was on it. I just couldn't believe it. This is absolutely a non-starter for me, that we cannot allow this Phase 2 LNG to happen. No more fracking, no more pipelines. It's got to stop. You know, tourism in our province is a $9.7 billion industry. It's bigger than oil and gas. It's bigger than forestry. If something happened to our coastline, imagine what it would do to our tourist industry. It would destroy it. But you also asked in that question, would I have difficulty working with the Mark Carney government? I don't think I have difficulty working with anyone. One of the things I pride myself as a doctor is being able to get along with all types of people from all walks of life, listen and collaborate. So I would walk into that room with Mr. Carney and his ministers and have an honest discussion about what's best for British Columbia.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to our next statement, our 4th statement. And just so you know what the responses are going to be, Jonathan, you'll be going first this time, Adam, and then Emily. Here's the statement, not necessarily the position of the BC Green Party. Agricultural land should be made available for low-cost housing projects. Jonathan, you're first.
Okay, great. Now, I know my good friend Arzina Hamir, candidate Courtney Comox, is listening to this, so I better be careful what I say about agricultural land. You know, housing is really important, and we need to have more affordable housing, but it's the right type of housing. We don't need to take up our agricultural stock to our land stock in order to build more housing. We need to have creative solutions to build more affordable housing. In Courtney Comox, we have a plethora of single-family homes and luxury condos, but we don't have enough affordable housing. That's why I've been championing at our regional district the creation of a housing authority to build below-market, non-market rental housing tied to income. And we can do that in the confines of our cities without having to use up valuable farmland. Our farmland should be used for local food production so that we have free school lunches based on organic food from our local farms.
Jonathan, thank you very much. And now, Adam, agricultural land should be made available for low-cost housing projects.
Yeah, thank you. And this is something close to my heart. I actually live on agricultural land, so I'm very familiar with both the legalities and complexities of living on ALR, but also the benefits that it has brought to our province. I think when it comes down to ALR, we need to review the process of ALR land. And that's not to say we need to allow it to be put out. I know myself and many farmers struggle with the existing regulations, whether it's on secondary housing, housing for their families or friends who want to. The regulations are pushing farmers and generational living families off of the land, and that needs to be stopped. When it comes to removing ALR land from the ALR, we can't do that. And there is a very small fraction of land that could be potentially taken out. And in that case, I would encourage, if it's not farmable, but we need to go through real evidence-based processes, soil testing, constructors and people going out and looking at the land, reviewing it, before we ever consider taking out what is so valuable to our province, which is our farmable land.
Thank you very much, Adam. And we'll wrap this one up with you, Emily. Agricultural land should be made available for low-cost housing projects.
I don't think so. But as Adam said, we do need comprehensive assessment to ensure that we are building the right kind of housing units in the right places. And I would fully prioritize and invest in non-market and social housing for so many reasons. I mean, I grew up in cooperative housing. I know how under-resourced they are. There's multi-year wait lists, and it's untenable, but it would be a salvation to so many, like it was my family. And we need to ensure that housing is being treated as a human right and not a luxury, and that we're putting effective guardrails on predatory developers that are attempting to strip away agricultural lands and actually increase urban sprawl that way.
Thank you. Thank you to all three of you. So this is the last question in this round. And actually, after this question and your responses, we'll be taking a break. So it's gone fast. Good for you. Okay, here's the last one, our final statement. Not necessarily the policy of the BC Green Party. Public safety is best served by increasing foot patrols by peace officers. Public safety is best served by increasing foot patrols by peace officers. And Adam, you're first on this one.
Thank you. I would say that public safety is most improved when we provide for everyone in our province. That means ensuring people have a right to housing. That is ensuring that people have a right to mental health care, a right to addiction treatment, a right to resources and upskilling training programs. It is ensuring that the people of our province are thriving so that people don't even get put in a position where the thought to steal or to commit crime is one of survival. And I think for a lot of people in this province, they have been pushed out of housing and onto streets and into situations where it is not safe because this government has failed to address the cost of living crisis and the other issues that are facing the people of British Columbia. And in saying that, we need to protect communities and we need to protect people within them. And while foot patrols are good for maybe an intermittent solution at best, we need to really focus on the systemic issues facing our province, because we know as all of these crises have gotten worse, this issue has followed.
Thank you very much, Adam. Emily, you're next on this one. Public safety is best served by increasing foot patrols by peace officers.
I disagree. I prefer a team-based approach that ensures that we have the resourcing and funding for social workers and community safety workers who do not, who do not have police training, straight up, and to ensure that we are investing in preventative care, in the wraparound community supports that are needed to reduce and to support community safety overall. And I think that also starts in schools. There's been a massive challenge with the NDP firing a Victoria school board over over a move to end the police liaison program. I would ensure that we get school police liaisons out of school, actually, and ensure that there are full-time counselors to provide the care that students need.
Thank you very much, Emily. And now, Jonathan, I'll read it one more time. Public safety is best served by increasing foot patrols by peace officers.
Yes, so I want to first of all thank all of our police officers across the province for the work that they do to keep us safe. But in this instance, I really think that can't be the only answer. Two examples that I want to talk about is one is restorative justice program. In the Comox Valley, we have an amazing restorative justice program that connects people together in our community to find real solutions to the problems that they face, that don't result in criminal time or being locked up behind bars or having a criminal record. What we need to do is ensure that people can come together and heal as a community, and I'm really supportive of that system. The other thing that I proposed is we need a fourth option when we call 911. If you look at my platform on my website, you'll see I've called for a mental health option that doesn't fit within police, fire, or ambulance. So a rapidly deployed mental health team can go to situations where people have a specific need that is not one of those other issues. So yeah. Thanks.
Great. Thank you very much. Just taking a look at our time, we have done so well. By sticking to time, we are actually finishing exactly when we hope to. So we are going to give you a break because that's hard work. Standing there for an hour rapidly answering all of these questions extremely well. So I want to thank you for your respect of each other and of the time, of the clock. You have a 5-minute break now. A 5-minute break for the people in the room, for the people on YouTube, and for our 3 contestants. Chance to stretch your legs, get some water. When you come back, and 5 minutes, we will be starting again. We will have another round of debate questions like we did at the beginning. Then we'll have the contestant-to-contestant questions. So lots more to come. Thank you all. Thank you for coming back. I was getting worried there. Welcome back to everyone. We are now going to begin the second round of debate questions. Now, you'll remember from when we did this last, each contestant is given a statement, and the other two will have a chance to respond to the same statement. It's in the form of a statement because it's designed to stimulate discussion, and it is not necessarily the position of the BC Green Party. I sort of think I could put that on a piece of tape and just keep playing it. This time, Emily, you will be starting. Here's our debate statement for the first part of this half. Member-driven policy development is the bedrock of the BC Green Party, and it supports platform development. It is primarily up to the leader to promote the policy priorities of the party. So that's member-driven policy development is the bedrock of the BC Green Party and supports platform development. It is primarily up to the leader to promote the policy priorities of the party. Emily, you have 2.5 minutes.
Thank you. Participatory democracy is one of my favorite of the 6 principles. And I feel like I've really lived it. We've had a whole thriving experience over the course of this campaign. And I had so many members ask me for my policy vision. And so I set up a process to do that in line with the grassroots member-driven process of the BC Greens. I've engaged hundreds of members on our policy platform, which was closely inspired by the 2024 platform. I think we've put out 61 pages of policy. We really got maybe too carried away. It was an exciting process where, so many members were feeding in. And I can't wait to hear from more members on this platform. It really opened up just a thriving hub of ideas. And I wanted to use my campaign as a catalyst to open up another avenue for grassroots democracy in the BC Greens. And we've done that by bringing in thousands of new members. Specifically, I think the 1,500 youth were really feeding in and contributing to this policy vision. And I think we also did this by bringing in volunteers and empowering them to take meetings with experts, with community leaders, and with other Green members. As leader, I would prioritize member-driven policy development, partly by decentralizing, ensuring that we have the thriving riding associations that we need across this province by bringing in these thousands of new members to extend and energize those riding associations. In a sense, I think every leader should be trying to make themselves obsolete, to be setting up the systems and processes to ensure that they are the convener and they are setting forward their membership and the riding associations, the EDAs, ensuring that they are set up with the systems and processes to really catalyze that membership-driven policy process year-round.
Thank you very much, Emily. And now, Jonathan, you have 2.5 minutes to respond to this statement. Member-driven policy development is the bedrock of the BC Green Party and supports platform development. It is primarily a leader to promote the policy priorities of the party.
Well, I've always really loved that about our party, that it's a member-driven policy development, and we are a grassroots party by nature. And in that spirit, as I've traveled this summer, I've released a major platform plank, one a week, for members to review and provide feedback on. Environment, climate change, cost of living, housing, healthcare, reconciliation, human rights, education, economy, energy, and democracy. It's been a living, breathing platform that has evolved and has been improved by many of you in this room and listening online. Green members across the province providing amazing feedback to me in person, by email, by phone. I remember one Friday evening, I was up north in Prince George. We were sitting late in the night, sipping wine in a living room, talking with the amazing ecologists, professors, and researchers from this group called Conservation North. I really highly suggest you look them up. We got down, pardon the pun, to the root of the problem of the forestry industry, really looking at what needs to be changed and how we can change it as a party. And I made changes to my forestry platform based on this discussion. Interestingly, I learned that in the north, they don't call it old growth, they call them primary forests. So I incorporated that into my platform as well. Conversations like this have been so enriching to me intellectually, but they've also really touched my heart. Knowing that so many of you are passionate about our province, our planet, and have great ideas that you want to share. Together, we will create the best platform our party has ever seen heading into the next election.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. Yes, you want to get a discussion going, ask Greens about policy. Adam, I'll read it again for you. Member-driven policy development is the bedrock of the BC Green Party and supports platform development. It is primarily up to the leader to promote the policy priorities of the party.
Thank you. And I think this is somewhere where I've been unique, like the Greens, when it comes to policies. I've refused to put out a policy platform. My platform is the BC Green Party's platform. It is why I joined the party, it is why I am running for leader of the party, and it is why I will continue to push these policies forward because they are the best for British Columbians. That said, if I want to put a piece of policy through, I will do what any other member of the party does, and I will submit it for a review process from our policy committee and wait the 6 weeks for them to review the evidence-based decision-making process, and ideally get it passed at an AGM so that it is adopted. In that sense, I think we need to realize that the leader of any party should never put down policy on it, and that it should be a membership and democratic process, because we know as Greens that we do the best work when we collaborate and when we use evidence to guide our decision job. But my job as leader, and when it comes to policy and how I see myself, is my job is to champion the policies that are developed by members, the policies that are rooted in democracy and evidence-based thinking. And going forward, I'm going to champion all of our policies. Whether something passes and maybe I don't like it too much, I see my job is to represent the members and what they believe in first and put my personal beliefs second. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. All right, we'll move on to our next question in this round. And Jonathan, you will be beginning. I repeat, because These are about leadership, and they're not necessarily an official position, but when one of you is chosen as leader, it'll be the first time in 10 years the next leader of the BC Greens will not be an elected member of the Legislative Assembly. Now, over that time, the BC Green MLAs have been able to exert an influence over the legislative agenda far greater than the number of seats they hold. Going forward, and here's the statement, how would you respond to this statement? The next BC Green leader must work collaboratively with the government and our MLAs, because soft power is the best way for BC Greens to get results in the House. Jonathan, you begin, 2.5 minutes.
Well, thank you. And I've just been so inspired by the work of our prior and current Green MLAs. You know, when you elect Greens, they get things done. Our Green MLAs have paved the way and improved the lives of British Columbians for many years. When Greens hold the balance of power, it has led to increased minimum wage and got corporate money out of politics. Sonia Furstenau's leadership led to expanded childcare. And our 2 current Green MLAs delivered things like more community health centers and support for renters. They're working hard to build relationships and find evidence-based solutions to climate change, healthcare, housing, and more. As an elected city councillor, I know that when you're in government, you need to work with fellow elected officials, even if they sit across the aisle from you. We have a pretty polarized council in Comox, and I'm used to working with those that don't always see eye to eye with me, either around the council table or maybe a coffee before a meeting, to really have tough conversations and find out where in this whole range of policy ideas can we find some common ground and make sure that people in Comox and the Comox Valley have an improved life and we improve policy for them. You know, being an elected official, I know it's not about me, it's about my constituents, those that voted for me, and even those that didn't. And I want to make sure that I represent everyone that is in my community at all times. Leadership as an elected official is about finding results for constituents, and this is done through listening, building relationships, and collaboration. As a family doctor, these are skills that I've honed over the last 17 years. I really look forward, if I'm elected leader, to supporting our 2 MLAs in the next round of CARGA, the negotiations with the province, and delivering more tangible results for British Columbians.
Thank you, Jonathan. Adam, you're next in this lineup. The next BC Green leader must work collaboratively with the government and our MLAs, because soft power is the best way for BC Greens to get results in the House.
Yeah, thank you. And I would say I agree, especially working with our MLAs, I think is a very, low goal. But I think that when I take over as leader, ideally if I win, that ensuring that we get the most of our policy and our platform into government, into law, is going to be my priority. And working with partners who want to see a better province is going to be part of that. I think that right now, more than ever, we have a crisis in politics where we are struggling to speak to the opposition, where our politics are becoming divisive. And that is to do with in the way we talk and the fact that we have thought no longer we can partner with people outside of our own spheres. And I think that is a negative thing to believe that. And we know as Greens, we have seen the results of what Adam and Sonia and now Rob and Jeremy have achieved in the legislature. There are real differences. For myself, I'm a minimum wage worker. My wage is now tied to inflation thanks to the advocacy of Adam and Sonia. And those are real results that I live with. And I know that sometimes there may be a little uncomfortability about partnering with a party that doesn't share our beliefs. But at the end of the day, if we can get through our policy and we can improve the lives of British Columbians, that should be first and foremost our goal. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Emily, the next BC Green leader must work collaboratively with the government and our MLAs, because soft power is the best way for BC Greens to get results in the House.
I think we need to use all the tools in the toolkit, and that we need to negotiate from a place of strength. I think we need a leader who can lead careful negotiations, as I have, but also create external pressure across media and movements to give us real leverage in those rooms. Because let's be honest, the NDP does not cave to a well-researched policy brief and a firm handshake. They just don't. We've seen that throughout history, and we know that they are afraid of growing movements, progressive voters that threaten their vote share. And we need to flex that in order to gain real leverage in those rooms. And that has been the lion's share of my experience of the past decade. That's how I won the divestment campaign at the University of Victoria as a student union director, where we divested $250 million from the university's fossil fuel endowment. I was in there in the negotiating rooms, badgering every single administrator for over a year, but I was also out there organizing thousands of students to ensure that they felt pressure and that they felt the heat from all sides. And similarly, in Alberta, I brought together disconnected farmers, landowners, and First Nations with environmental lawyers and ENGOs to form a grassroots coalition to stand up against the Pathways Carbon Capture Project. And those are the kind of systems, those multifaceted movement ecosystems that we need to bring to the BC Greens to ensure that we're using every tool at our disposal to leverage change. It's important to build our party, and it's important to win in those policy negotiations, because we are up against a really dark reality that the NDP has sold out regular people to corporations in this province, from private contracted healthcare to American-owned pipelines. We can't afford to settle for more scraps. We need courage, we need bravery, and we need to work with the movements to force the change we so desperately need.
Thank you very much, Emily. All right, we're coming to the last question in this section, and we're going to begin with you, Adam. Again, these are not necessarily the position of the BC Greens. Adam, please respond to the statement that it is possible to maintain protection of old growth while respecting Indigenous rights and sovereignty.
Yeah, I would say that that can be true as long as it's led by Indigenous peoples. And in forestry management, Indigenous people need to come first, and they need to guide us. We know the ecological wisdom that has been, it's evident in our land. It's evident in the old growth forests that have survived colonization. And in that sense, I do believe, under the current system, no, I don't think that we can really have, not to mention reconciliation, real reconciliation, but real partnerships with Indigenous nations is the way to go, in my opinion on that. Thank you.
All right, next on this one is Emily. Emily, you have 2.5 minutes to respond to the statement that it is possible to maintain protection of old growth while respecting Indigenous rights and sovereignty.
Again, I think we need to look at the broader context here. And the reality is that Indigenous nations are being forced into a rock and a hard place decision point, where they're choosing between abject poverty and having their lands and waters destroyed, often by foreign multinationals. And as a government, I think we need to put more options on the table and to ensure that we are steadfast allies for true self-determination and co-governance. I think that means fully implementing DRIPA and requiring free, prior, and informed consent on all projects affecting Indigenous nations. It also means amending Bills 14 and 15, the fast-tracking laws, to require FPIC. And it also means supporting and allocating funds to ensure that nations can more easily pursue full title, as Haida Gwaii did. And it also means establishing a fund for historical redress to support First Nations. We know that the fossil fuel industry, governments across Canada, are pushing things like equity ownership agreements on First Nations, forcing them forcing that tight decision-making with fairly, predatory proposals and approaches. And so we need to be clear about the financial risks of some of these agreements, equity ownership of ballooning fossil fuel projects, as well as forestry and other extractive industries. And ultimately, as the BC Greens, we need to move at the speed of trust, and we need to build relationships with nations across this province. It has been the great highlight and honor of my work to steward and build those relationships with nations across the province, to have the endorsement of Grand Chief Stuart Phillip, of Sartlet Chief Don Tom, and Hereditary Chief Namox. And I am grateful that we can move forward with those relationships from a place of shared understanding.
Thank you very much, Emily. We're going to be wrapping this up with you, Jonathan. It is possible to maintain the protection of old growth while respecting Indigenous rights and sovereignty.
Yeah, and I just want to say I really agree with a lot of what Adam and Emily just said. I mean, this is so important. This work that we need to do to ensure that First Nations communities across our province are respected, they're fully consulted. Bill 14 and 15 really pulled back those partnerships and consultations, and it's a real travesty. We need to, I agree, fully implement DRIPA, the Declaration of Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act, fully in our province, full stop. One of the things that I also agree with is that we need to provide other opportunities for First Nations so that they're not caught in this very binary situation. In my platform, under the energy section, I invite you to have a look. You'll see that I've called for First Nations to be allowed to become utilities, full utilities, so that they can have another revenue source and don't need to rely on pipelines and forestry. Old growth in our province, or primary forests, as they say up north, only 4% of our forests. It's probably closer to 3% now. We absolutely have to stop this absolute destruction of these beautiful ecosystems, because it's not just about the trees. It's also about the wildlife that grows there, and it's about the watersheds that they protect. From my kitchen window, I can see the clear cutting of the Beaufort Mountain Range. The other thing with logging is we know that these logs are being transported overseas. Raw logs are being exported. But we're not just exporting the logs, we're exporting the jobs. We have to stop this practice immediately. We have to protect our old growth, and we have to ensure that our First Nations communities all across the province are supported. I just want to say, as I have a little bit of time left in this question, I'm just so proud to have been a witness and a community member watching our Comox First Nation in the Comox Valley. We've just voted for treaty this year. It's been such an exciting moment for our community, and to watch this happen over the last 10 years, the negotiations that have been going on with the province and the federal government. And I'm so excited for the Comox First Nations on their new future, becoming a fully treaty nation.
Thank you all. Well, I applaud the ideas that you brought forward and the positions that I have seen you sort of weaving as we go forward. Now, I must admit, we're coming to a very interesting part of the debate, and I'm a little nervous because I want to get the order right. I spent hours working out this graph, so bear with me. This is now the contestant-to-contestant questions, and we want to make sure that it is done, that you each get an opportunity to ask each other a question. So here's how it's going to work. Each contestant will have the opportunity to ask a question of each of the other contestants. The person who's being asked the question gets 90 seconds to respond. The person who is asking the question gets 30 seconds to ask the question. And if you take longer, I am going to stop you and interpret the question myself. So you don't want to go over time. Questions must be respectful. I will have the authority, and I told you all this earlier, but to disallow a question if I consider it inappropriate. And inappropriate would mean whether it was personally degrading or insulting. Questions can be related to a specific policy issue or something that's arisen during this debate. You were all made aware of this, so I'm sure you've thought about it. Here's the order. It's going to be Adam to Jonathan, Jonathan to Emily, Emily to Adam, Emily to Adam, Adam to Emily, Emily to Jonathan, and Jonathan to Adam. Anyway, I'll walk you through that, but that's how it's going to work. All right, are we ready? The question's 30 seconds, the answer's 90 seconds, and Adam, you get to ask Jonathan a question.
Yeah, thank you. To Dr. Kerr, we've noticed that your campaign has been under heat, and there have been some online controversies, and I wanted to ask, how have you dealt with that through this process, and are you upsetting the right people?
That's great. Yeah, no, politics is hard. I found that out when I ran municipally, and this election campaign is no different. Fortunately, I've been training as a biathlete for many years, and for those of you that don't know what a biathlete is, it's a mixture of cross-country skiing and rifle marksmanship. So I have to get my heart rate up over about 180 as I go up the hill, trying to chase the other masters athletes around, sometimes my son, but he's too fast now. And then I need to come in to the shooting range, and I need to bring my heart rate down. I need to do deep breathing, some meditation, and some really focused key words in order to be able to hit the targets. Because in biathlon, for every target you miss, you have to ski an extra penalty loop of 100 meters. So you really don't want to miss targets. And there's stuff happening, there's music going on, and there's athletes beside you. But in order to really focus, I've really developed those skills over the years, and I've been able to coach athletes as well to do this from ages 9 up to 76 in our club. And it's amazing to be able to see, let's say, a 12 or 13-year-old who really gets it for the first time in their career, where they learn how to control their breathing, control their focus, and hit those targets. So, biathlon is a lot like politics. You got to focus, you got to ski really fast, work really hard, and make sure that you're focusing on the right things at all times and not getting distracted. Thanks for the question, Adam.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. Now, Jonathan, you get to ask Emily a question. Again, question has to be 30 seconds. The response can be 90 seconds, Emily.
Okay. Emily, great job tonight so far. You said on a recent podcast that we were on together that you walked away from our party under Sonia Furstenau's leadership because it didn't sufficiently represent working class people. This was at a time when the Greens were responsible for raising the minimum wage higher than the NDP wanted, and were fighting for affordable housing and free transit. Sonia also made wealth distribution the main theme. Can you specify how Sonia wasn't progressive enough for you?
Thanks for the opportunity to answer that, Jonathan. I think Sonia was a remarkable leader, and I think she was incredibly progressive, particularly following the Weaver years. And that's actually when I joined the BC Greens. It was under Andrew Weaver. And so I didn't feel represented as a young person in the volunteer teams, and I didn't fully resonate with his policy vision. So I fully admire Sonia's vision and policy, and I've actually built on it. A lot of my platform is deeply inspired by the 2024 platform, and I look forward to being mentored by her as leader.
All right, thank you very much. Now, Emily, you get to ask Adam a question.
Adam, you've touted long-standing relationships inside the BC Green Party, but what you haven't shown us in this race is that you have networks and connections outside the BC Greens. If the party is to grow, the future leader must be able to bring in new members, profiles, and endorsers. What is your plan to grow the BC Green Party beyond its traditional audiences?
Yeah. Do I wait for
Yes, no, you get to go now for 90 seconds.
Yeah, thank you. And I think I'll say that I think for myself, I've highlighted these experiences because they're the ones that matter in this race. I have tons of experience climate organizing, union organizing, as I've mentioned. I have spent the last 8 years of my life with this party, and through that process, not only have I integrated myself into the party and learned about what it means to be a BC Green and our structures, but I've built connections outside of that. And I haven't taunted those through this race because I didn't believe it was an appropriate forum. We are here to be the next leader of the BC Green Party, and to me, what matters and what I want to promote is the experience within the BC Green Party.
Okay. And now, Adam gets to ask Emily a question. 30 seconds for the question, 90 seconds for the response.
Yeah, thank you. You have put out lots of progressive policy that I myself agree with some planks of it. But my concern is that through this process, and I as the only candidate who hasn't announced it, how do you plan on implementing the policy without overriding the values and the system we have? Because currently member policy needs at least 6 weeks to be developed, and it has to be submitted by individual members. Do you plan on using the leader's office to force through your policy platform?
The great thing is, Adam, I don't need to. We've brought in thousands of new people, new members to this party. I've consulted hundreds of BC Green members, old and new, to develop the platform that I put out, the 61 ridiculous, beautiful pages of our policy platform. And I would start that process right away. I would hit the ground running, ensuring that members are, talking to riding associations, getting integrated into the structures of the BC Green Party so they can advocate for the policy that they resonate with the most.
Okay. Now, Emily, you get to question Jonathan.
Jonathan, I'm frankly concerned about your ability to do this work part-time. You've said publicly that you have no intention of leaving your position on City Council or your practice as a doctor. When I was invited by the party to run, they made it clear that this position requires a commitment of 70 hours or more per week. Do you honestly believe that rebuilding the BC Greens is a part-time job?
Well, I know everyone back home that knows me well is smiling at this because they know how hard I work, and they know I work about 120 hours a week. When I went to high school, I was 4'9", and I signed up for the basketball team. And the coach said, okay, you can join. So I joined the team, learned all the plays, knew them better than the coach, worked harder than anyone else on the court. Second year, I actually got some playing time. Third year, I was starting point guard. Fourth year, I was a team captain. So as a doctor, I work a day a week in the clinic. I have a very small practice. I've always worked a day a week in the clinic. Easy to do, and actually, we encourage a 4-day work week, and so Fridays will be my day in the clinic if I'm elected leader. Being a doctor also helps me keep grounded to my community. I see the world through the eyes of my patients and their families. Find out what's actually happening, things that I don't see in my daily life. I do plan to not run for council again. I do plan to step down from the Comox Valley Regional District. I might still do biathlon because I need to exercise. But absolutely, I plan to commit full-time hours. As a doctor, we work really hard. I'm no stranger to hard work, and I can easily do this with all of my other activities in my life. So thanks for the question, and really appreciate it.
So you're correcting the record that you...
Time's up.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yes, Ashi. Do you want to answer that, or shall we move on?
You've
Sure.
said multiple times that you will stay on at least for the first year of council. So I'm just clarifying that you are intending to step down as soon as you're elected leader.
Okay, so just to educate everyone who's watching here and who's in attendance, council is 2 or 3 meetings a week for a couple hours from 5 to 7 at night. That's not full time. I can do that in the evenings, and that's definitely something that I can continue to do. It's also really important to not cost taxpayers more money.
Okay, I think we've got an answer, though, so you just won't run again, is that
Yeah,
what
I'm not going to run again,
Okay,
but I will
thank
step
you.
down from the Comox Valley Regional District as vice chair.
All right, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay, last round of this is Jonathan gets to ask Adam a question.
Okay, where's my Adam question? There it is. All right. So Adam, I've really respected, the amount of time that you've put into the party and the roles that you've had. I do note that the next leader will have to go toe-to-toe with the premier in debates. And as a university student, how do you feel you're ready to do that, go head-to-head with the premier?
Yeah, thank you. I will say I've done it before, actually. I challenged John Horgan over COVID policy back when that time of our lives we don't speak about it was occurring. As he blamed young people across the province for spreading COVID, I stood up, I went on radio stations, I wrote an op-ed, I held him to account with other young candidates, as well as even just in the last election, just 11 months ago, I stood toe-to-toe with almost 20% of David Eby's cabinet at the time. So I am more than ready. I have been on debate stages with current ministers, with the members of the cargo negotiation team. I have been up toe-to-toe with premiers in the past. So I think that my experience will speak for itself, and you can go and find the debate videos online if you'd like.
Thank you very much. Wow, we did it. Thank you to our candidates and to your willingness to work with this format. I think you did a great job of that. So let's, yeah, give them a round of applause. All right. So now we're going to move on to the last round of debate statements that are not necessarily the policy of the Green Party. And the format stays the same. One person will be given the first statement, the other two will respond afterwards. This time we begin with you, Emily. Here's the first debate statement for this section. Building the party's ability to organize province-wide is required in order to increase electoral success in the next provincial election. So building the party's ability to organize province-wide is required. 2.5 minutes.
This is my favorite question. My campaign developed volunteer teams in Victoria, Vancouver, Northern BC, and the Okanagan for that very reason. And it generated remarkable results and unprecedented energy across our campaign. I don't think it's a coincidence that our bold progressive vision is resonating with thousands of new members and people outside the traditional Green base, people who don't normally think about voting Green. And it's generated incredible traction on social media as well, over 2.2 million views. And that's really one of the strengths that I offer is a communication strategy that is able to reach young people, workers, renters, everyone else who is fed up with the status quo in this province. I think it's important to acknowledge that around the world, Greens have won historic influence and seats by bringing in young people and non-traditional voters. And we can do the same here at the BC Greens by appealing to young people and the 1.5 million people who did not vote in the last election but were registered to do so. I want to point out leaders like Zach Polanski, who won a landmark campaign with 85% of the vote as Green leader of England. And of course, another great inspiration to my campaign, Zoran Mamdani of New York, people that are able to scale the level of organizing that you need to knock on tens of thousands of doors across a region and really reach people where they're at. We can use social media as one entry point, but we need to get on the ground. And that's what my team has done. We've canvassed, we've had incredible flyering parties, events, street canvassing, and I think that really embodies our values of social democracy, justice, and participatory democracy. Being able to channel those thousands of new members to rebuild our RAs will be day one of my plan as Green leader.
Thank you very much, Emily. Now we go to you, Adam. I'm just going to repeat the question. Building the party's ability to organize province-wide is required to increase electoral success in the next provincial election.
Thank you. Yeah, I think this has been close to myself as a candidate in the past and experiencing what it's like to run for MLA. I know that the BC Greens need to do more to support our candidates. I think we need to push on campaign manager field training sessions so that we have people ready to go when the election is called. We need to ensure that our RAs are strong. And one of the things, I was the first to announce the 93 riding tour within the first 6 months of my leadership. Not even at the attempt to meet every single person I can, but to show people in this province, BC Greens show up in your community. Whether you're up in Fort St. John, you're down here in Victoria, or you're over in Nelson, BC Greens are going to show up for the sake of showing up, because that's how you start building community. That's how you build connections. As well as I'd like to speak and maybe even reference some connections again. My campaign has staff on it currently now who have worked for AOC's field team and designed Zoran's graphics. And I will bring those people with me into the party. I will bring their expertise and their knowledge, and we will grow the party. We will expand our movement, and we will ensure that we are a well-organized and election-ready body, because one thing that this party needs to do much stronger is work on our field game and ensure that all candidates across the province are ready to go on day one of an election call, as well as ensuring and committing to, as leader, I will run a full slate of candidates across the province. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adam. So Jonathan, it's your turn to respond to this statement. Building the party's ability to organize province-wide is required to increase electoral success in the next provincial election.
Thanks, Joanne. You know, with my own 2 eyes, I've seen a real resurgence and re-engagement with the party. We heard the number of 3,700 new members. Actually, a lot of those new members are actually returning members that have come back to the party. I've seen waves of these members coming back to the party and new people joining the party because of our 3 leadership campaigns. And I want to thank all of you that have joined and all of you that have been longtime members. Over the past 6 weeks, I've traveled to over 25 communities, signing up new members in Prince George, Nelson, Kelowna, Kamloops, Campbell River, Vancouver, Victoria, and everywhere in between. I remember meeting 2 prior NDP supporters at a backyard barbecue in Caslow. We signed them up as new BC Green members because they were excited about my vision for the province and our party. A man from Surrey, who I met for the first time, has signed up 40 of his friends and family, all newcomers to this country, and who've never been Green Party members before. I spoke with a 23-year-old University of Victoria student, Tom, who said I would be the best leader for his generation of Greens. And I remember one disillusioned previous Green member that I met in a coffee shop. She signed up as a member again to support my leadership campaign. The response and momentum that I've seen throughout the campaign has been overwhelming and actually really inspiring. This is how we're going to build the party, together. I have these skills to bring people together, to lead teams, and to be collaborative. Working with people we disagree with, finding common ground, and making the lives of British Columbians better. That's what experienced leadership looks like.
Thank you very much. All right. We're going to move on to the second question, and Adam, you'll be the first on this, so listen carefully. Again, this is not necessarily the position of the BC Green. But this is something that, having worked with the BC Greens, I can say is critically important in the role of leader. So I'm going to add my personal input on this one. It is the role of the leader to create a collaborative and inclusive culture and ensure that provincial council, caucus, and the party office are all on the same page. We often call it the three-legged stool of the Green Party. So I want your reaction to this statement. You have 2.5 minutes, Adam.
Thank you. And I deeply believe this. And this is something I had personal experience with working with Sonia Furstenau. She came into the party and that system wasn't there. And I watched her build and try to bring caucus and PC and really the members as well into the process and ensure that our party is connected, because we're not going to be able to effectively legislate as an organization if the 3 legs of our party aren't connected. You're not going to want to sit on that stool, to say the least. So I think that is going to be very important to me. And I've seen it done by experienced MLAs, by Sonia herself, and I want to continue that mission, work with our executive director to make sure that the party is on the same page as the caucus and bring everyone together, because our resources divided are less than they are united.
Thank you very much. All right, next in my very official order here. Jonathan, you have 2.5 minutes to respond to, it is the role of the leader to create a collaborative and inclusive culture and to ensure that provincial council, caucus, and the party office are all on the same page.
Well, I've learned, over my 45 years on this planet and as a twice elected municipal councillor, that relationships are everything in politics. It's not just about relationships with other politicians. It also includes relationships with staff and others working towards those same goals that you care about. I've taken a number of leadership courses and programs over the last 2 decades, specifically leading up to my role as the president of the Provincial College of Family Physicians, representing over 14,000 family doctors. I discovered through all these courses that my favorite style of leadership is servant leadership. Leading through serving. It means empowering others to be at their best every day. If elected, I really look forward to getting to know our party staff, our caucus, the caucus team, provincial council, the other candidates, as human beings, learning their kids' names, learning what they like to do in their spare time, and most importantly, how I can best serve them to be at their best. By building a cohesive team made up of individuals that truly care about each other, we can elevate our party to greater and greater heights. Leadership isn't about me. Leadership is about helping others be at their best.
Thanks very much, Emily. It's coming to you now. It's your turn to respond to. It is the role of the leader to create a collaborative and inclusive culture and ensure that provincial council, our caucus, and the party office are all on the same page.
I absolutely agree. And I think my track record shows that I am a strong communicator, I'm a coalition leader, and I build movements across incredibly diverse groups, across environmental organizations, nations, labor, think tanks, being able to come to the decision-making table with very diverse priorities and to push for not the lowest common denominator in those spaces, but the highest. And that takes bold leadership, that takes careful negotiating skills, and the ability to, work at the speed of trust and be in good relationship with everyone that I'm working with. And I've had the great privilege, as I've worked as a strategist at Climate Action Network Canada, to work directly with some of the caucus staff. And it's been such a treasure to share our knowledge and research on the liquefied natural gas projects that are being expanded here in BC, and to share that sense of the political landscape. Because that's also another strength that I offer, is being able to understand the political horizon and landscape we're in and where those pressure points are. Being able to understand the intricacies of that landscape and work collectively as a team across all bodies to ensure that we're pushing in unison. And I've managed diverse teams doing research reports across organizing and policy. And I think it's so critical that we have someone in this position who has a proven track record of bridging across political difference. And I think I've already shown my capacity to bring in the resurgence of members that we need to really rebuild a thriving new era for this party. And that will be, I think, just a total evolution and a new generation of leadership for the BC Greens, for all staff to get truly inspired and excited about.
Thank you very much. Actually, that question is going to lead really well into my last question. And this one is going to probably get a little more personal. We're going to start with you, Jonathan, okay? And then we're going Jonathan, Emily, Adam. Okay, just so you all know with the order here. Leadership contests can be hard on relationships. Building Team BC Greens to include the other contestants and their supporters and new members will be a priority for me. So, Jonathan, the statement is, leadership contests can be very hard on relationships. Building Team BC Greens to include the other contestants, their supporters, and new members will be a priority for me. You have 2.5 minutes.
Yeah, and that's a great question to end on. And if anyone read my birthday email, they know how much I care for both Adam and Emily. You know, it's been tough. We've, taken some shots. We've had a great sparring, today, and the contestant-to-contestant questions were a lot of fun. And I think, though, we do respect each other. I too truly respect both of them. If I'm elected leader, under no uncertain terms, I would work my hardest to get Emily and Adam both elected as MLAs, to sit with myself, with Rob, with Jeremy, and more Greens, to hold the balance of power in the next legislation, and make sure that we have an ability to enact more green policies. It's funny, I'll use another example from my competitive world of biathlon, right? I'm out there competing against my fellow masters athletes, and we're working hard. We want to beat each other so badly it hurts. But afterwards, we hug each other. We give high fives. We go out for a beer afterwards. And that's the way sports should be, and that's the way politics should be. As Greens, we are stronger together. We're stronger when we build each other up. We're stronger when we build our party up together. And that's what I've committed to all throughout this campaign. That's what our team has been doing as well. and I really look forward to working with these two wonderful individuals in the future, no matter the outcome of this race.
Thanks very much, Jonathan. Emily, I'm going to put the same thing to you. Leadership contests, and I've been involved in several, they can be hard on relationships. And as Jonathan points out, they're competitive. You wouldn't be in this role if you weren't. So building Team BC Greens to include the other contestants, their supporters, and new members will be a priority for me. Your response?
Yeah, it's been so great to get to know each of you, as well as Rob and Jeremy, over the course of this campaign. I've said a few times, we've been kind of like a traveling circus, you know, just meeting up in random spots across BC. It's been really fun, and just such a treasure to understand each of your visions for the BC Greens. And I also have to be clear that the new supporters that I've brought in, they don't want to see me as a deputy leader. They do want me to be leader, they want me to be elected, and I would encourage all of those new members to stay committed to the party and to continue to invest. But, you know, I hope that they would. And it's so crucial that we have, you know, measured policy brains like yourself, Jonathan, to work behind the scenes, either as a deputy or, you know, in the platform development process. And Adam, you've been an incredible support, and I think you can continue bringing your knowledge to provincial council and to the many other spaces that the BC Greens holds. And we have to be clear that we're at a crossroads here, that if we choose the status quo, we will fade away. We can choose my bold progressive leadership and bring in thousands of new people, the many people who want a political home in BC, who want to see a fighter, that they want to see a bold vision of the future that really works for working people and not corporations in this province. And my leadership is an opportunity to do that. And so I'm very excited to be pursuing this bold vision, to be bringing together these thousands of new members to push for change, and that I know as leader, I will be able to do exactly that.
All right, thanks, Emily. Adam, you get to wrap this one up. Yes, leadership contests can be hard on relationships, and working together after leadership contests is a stretch. So building Team BC Greens to include the other contestants and their supporters and new members will be a priority for me.
Yeah, thank you. And I just want to make a comment and say, I hope you do more than hope after the leadership race if you're not to win, because the members you brought in are new energy, and I'm so glad that we have them here. And you know, I mean, I'll even ask for their second support if you say that maybe they're not looking to stay involved after the process. Let me be your champion on that. But otherwise, that's going to be my goal. My first calls to ask to run for MLAs will be Rob and Jeremy, but my third and fourth will be you two. I can't snub Rob and Jeremy, of course. But I look forward to it. I look forward to an opportunity to work, to partnership. You've both brought amazing ideas and energy and new members into this race, and that's something that I value. I've been with this party so long that to see it grow like this gives me hope, and it fills my heart up. And I know the work that I've done as well on my campaign has really, you know, been what I've wanted to do for this party for so long. And to see two more people coming out and helping me in that effort has been amazing. And I really do hope you stay, and hope you can work with me afterwards. I hope we haven't said anything too mean today, but I look forward to it. And thank you both. And I hope to at least come second in your books if you want to rank. So tell your supporters to put me second. Let them know, because I'd be happy to have that. Thank you.
Thank you to all of you. Before closing remarks, I think it would be nice if the live audience we have here thanks our three contestants for how well they've done. All right, okay. We're almost going to finish on time. All right, thank you. Well, you've inspired this crowd. All right, we did draw names for the closing statements. And so the order for closing statements will be, we'll begin with Emily, then we'll go to Jonathan, and we will finish with Adam. So you have 90 seconds. The timer will be ready. Please, Emily, start. Make your closing statement.
I'd first like to thank my fellow contestants, all the wonderful staff at the BC Greens, and your joyful audience participation today. That was a lovely round of applause. It's been a hard year. We narrowly escaped a far-right government. We face escalating climate catastrophes while genocide rages on, and billionaires are making record profits while regular families in BC struggle to make ends meet. But this campaign has cracked open new hope for thousands of BC Green members, old and new, for the first time in a long time, to imagine a thriving future in our province. To the elders in this party, we, thousands of young people, are here now, ready to learn from your wisdom and lead the charge for our planet, for us, and for the children we have yet to have. We brought in thousands of members in just 5 weeks. Imagine what we can accomplish in a year. Our party is at a crossroads. We can either choose the status quo, a moderate approach, as Dr. Kerr has suggested, or with my leadership, we can build the strong, united, progressive party that I know British Columbians deserve. My name is Emily Lowen, and I would love to have your support as the next BC Green leader.
Thank you, Emily. And now we'll move on to Jonathan, your closing remarks.
Thanks, Joanne, and thanks to my fellow contestants as well and everyone watching in person or online. There's so much at stake for our province. We just can't afford to go backwards on climate change. The BC NDP are piling up broken promises and the Conservatives are in disarray. The next provincial election will be critical for the environment, for the economy, for healthcare and housing. Our party needs a leader with experience in all of those areas, elected experience. Only one of the three of us has been elected to government. Only one of us has run as a Green and won as a Green. And only one of us has recruited other candidates and worked to get them elected and then deliver tangible results for constituents. We need a leader that will lift the party up, not tear it down. We need a leader who can hit the ground running, who on day one can work with our MLAs to negotiate CARGA and recruit an all-star lineup of candidates that can win in the next election. I am ready to build a BC Green Party that can do this. I invite all of you to join me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. And now we'll wrap things up with Adam Bremner-Aitken.
Thank you. I'm going to take 1 second and just thank my campaign team, the volunteers, the people who've donated to my campaign throughout this process. You've made this possible. I'm not someone who has the money to do this. As I mentioned earlier, I'm a minimum wage worker, and I've had to take a lot of time off from my job to do this, and your donations have helped me achieve that, and to that I will be forever grateful to everyone who supported me. I think at this time I'm going to be the leader of maybe compromise, but I think of a better middle. We want a progressive future, but one backed with experience in politics. And that's what I come to this table to offer. I offer up my years of experience with this party. I offer up the fact that I'm the only one who decided over the last 4 years to run for this party in an election. I offer up my experience in provincial council. I offer my experience in life. As a queer person, I want to be the first elected queer leader of a political party that's represented in BC's government, because that's never happened, and it's time we change that. I want to go up and show young people, older people, people in between, that the issues I talk about from the perspective of a young person are intersectional. We are all facing the same issues, and that's what I'm focused on, because those issues are on my shoulders. And if they're on my shoulders, we're going to get them solved. And to say, both of my contestants, it's been an honor to be in this race with you, and to try and have a chance of leading this party. And to you, I both say, I've been happy to sort of, I guess, sit in the middle with you, and to your supporters as well. I look forward. Maybe I have had the opportunity to appeal to you tonight. So if you have the opportunity, it is a ranked ballot. Put me second or first, ideally first.
Thank you. Thank you. thank you to our contestants. I spoke to you all ahead of time, and I know this is nerve-wracking, no matter how much experience you have. But you really did a great job. You showed respect for each other, you showed respect for the party, and you gave us a sense of enthusiasm, which I'm very grateful for. So thank you for this leadership debate. And I want to thank all of your teams for being here, and for this live audience, and for those who are watching on YouTube. Please make sure that now that you've had a chance to see them all, you do vote. If you want to know how to do that, we will tell you after this.
Yes, and my job is to say a huge thank you to Joanne for being here. She drank my wine.
It's true.
We had to feed her and her husband, and so, you know, but it's so wonderful to have Joanne here. She is such a professional, this type of thing, and really do appreciate her being here. We are going to move on now. Excuse me, you guys. You're still here. Thank you very much for being here. And, you know, we really appreciate your answers. And it's been a wonderful, wonderful series of questions that you've answered. And I'm so happy that it's been so well responded to. The next part of this, and I guess you can leave the stage
Well,
now
I was
if you
just
want
going to say, our candidates can leave the stage, and you probably all remember the order. They will be talking to the media, and they will be doing it in order. So if you just want to go to the back of the room, we'll make that happen. All right, thank you.
Okay, and next I'm going to call on Stefan, wherever Stefan is, to explain the voting procedure. Oh, there you are. Hi, Stefan.
Thanks, Liz. So following the debate, just starting in a few moments, we will have more opportunities for you to verify your identity if you are a new member, if you joined the party between October 19th, 2024 and the membership deadline for the leadership contest, which was August 10th, 2025. Your ID needs to be verified. We'll be doing it in person here in Victoria, where the debate has taken place. We'll also be doing that in person at the Debate Watch Party in Vancouver, and we will be doing it online on Zoom. You can go to bcgreens.ca/events to get the link for the online ID verification. It's drop-in. You don't need to make an appointment. Just join the Zoom, and you'll be put in a private room with a verifier who will take a quick look at your ID, and then you're all set to go. Voting opens tonight at 8 p.m. So at about 8 p.m., you will receive a ballot. That's most people who are voting online. There are about 110 people who chose to vote by phone, and instructions for that have been mailed to you, and you will receive that letter mail this coming week when the post is delivered. So if you are not one of those 110 people who are voting by phone, you will receive an email with instructions on how to vote online with your credentials. It's pretty simple. If you've voted online before with the BC Green Party, you've done this before. It is exactly the same. We are using a ranked ballot, which means you choose your contestants in order of preference, where 1 is your top preference, 2, 3, 4, and so on. There is an option for none of the above, which can be ranked. So you can say, choose candidate B as your number 1 choice, candidate C as your number 2 choice, none of the above as your number 3 choice, and then if you've chosen that, there's no point in marking any further on your ballot. You do not have to mark all 4 options either. You can mark as many options as you want. So you can mark just 1 contestant, and that means that if that person is dropped from the rounds of voting, your votes do not lend any other contestant your vote. But you can stop at any point. You can also vote for nothing and effectively abstain from voting. You just simply choose no one when ranking the options. So voting opens again tonight at 8 p.m. You'll get an email. If you do not receive that email for some reason and you are expecting it, you can email the party votinghelp desk@bcgreens.ca, or you can call us 1-888-473-3686, and we will get back in touch with you right away. And voting will remain open until 11:59 p.m. on September 23rd, 10 days from now. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. That concludes our debate, and it's time to go and have a nice reception. Thank you for being here.